Let me quickly share my screen. Just a second. Okay, so please let me know if my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so as you know, today is the demo session of SCCM, right? In which we are going to discuss about that what is SCCM, why it is needed, why it is an enterprise solution, and why still most of the organization are relying on to SCCM tool. Okay, so first of all, it is not SCCM now, it is called as MECM. Earlier it was Software Center Configuration Manager, but now it is Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. They renamed it, okay, but the product is same, right? So first of all, in order to understand the functionality of SCCM, how companies are using it, and why it is the crucial part, and why is a crucial tool for any of the organization, right? So first of all, as you can see, the name stands Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. That means you will be able to manage your endpoint devices. Okay, so it can be your laptops. Let's say you have 10,000 laptops in your organization, right? You want to manage them. Let's say there is a requirement, you need to install some of the softwares onto it. Then in that case, no need to log in onto the devices. If you want to deploy that particular software into 10,000 devices, you can easily do it through the SCCM console, from the MECM console. You can target those devices, you can target those 10,000 devices, and then you will be able to see that there would be a software which you are going to deploy from your console, and it will be available in the laptop. Okay, so that deployment also can be done by two ways. Either a forceful installation, means it will be installed automatically onto the device, right? And the second will be in the available mode, means if user want, user will be able to install it manually. It is not going to be installed forcefully then. So this is just the example of deployment of the application. Likewise, the same thing you can do for the patching also, right? So patching is also a major thing in the organization. You have to make your infrastructure secured. And how you will be able to make it secure? So you have to deploy the patches to your devices so that it would be, the devices will be secured. Hope you all are aware of that Microsoft used to release their patches on every second Tuesday of the month, right? So it is our responsibility as a system administrator, as an operations engineer, it is our responsibility to deploy all that patches, all that security patches to each and every device of the organization, so that there would be no any chance of any hacking and any other, there would be not any issues related to security, right? So first of all, how then, if you're managing it, then how it works? So there are two things which you have to install, which you have to do. Okay, let me open this. So first of all, I'll try to make you understand that how it works, and then we are going to discuss that what and all topics we are going to cover under this whole module. Okay, so in order to build a SCCM infrastructure, what and all things, what and all prerequisites are there? So we have to build 3 servers. Right? So this is one. This one is the second one. And this is third. So these 3 servers are mandatory. Okay, so on first server, you have to configure You have to make this server as a domain controller, because how your SCCM server will be able to get the information of the devices which are the part of your domain. So in that case, we have to set up the domain controller so that whosoever system is the part of your domain, it should be visible under SCCM console also. We have to make the communication. We have to set up the discovery method we have to set up. Then in that case, whatever the devices are going to be there in your domain controller, the all devices you will be able to see in your SCCM server also, where you have configured your primary site, right? So one server is going to be the domain controller, and other one where you are going to configure the primary site. Where actually you are going to configure your SCCM environment, right? And third server is going to be the database server, SQL server basically. So these are the prerequisite in order to build a SCCM infra, right? So from domain controller, this SCCM server will be able to get to know that what and all systems are the part of your domain, what and all systems you have to manage, right? So, and then this database server is going to create the database of my primary site. So there are basically 3 sites are there which we can configure in the SCCM environment: central administration site, primary site, and secondary site. Now it depends on the infrastructure of your organization, or it depends that how many devices are there in your organization. So it totally depends on that, and based on that you are going to configure the primary site or secondary site or the central administration site. But central administration site and then the secondary site, these are totally optional. It is not mandatory to configure, but primary site is always mandatory to configure. Initially, when you have to build your SCCM environment, then in that case, you have to make sure that first of all, you are going to build a primary site, because it is mandatory. Central and secondary site, it is totally optional. I will let you know. Moving forward, I will let you know what is central administration site, what is secondary site, why it is optional, why it is not needed, why it is not mandatory. So I will be giving you all the examples. Okay. So these are the 3 prerequisites that I have to configure in order to build a SCCM infrastructure. And then after configuring it, I will be having the laptop, the devices, the endpoint devices. Let's say these are the devices which I have to manage. So these all devices are the part of my domain now. Then only these devices are going to reflect in my SCCM server, right? Now let's say there is a task. Let's say there is a task that you have to deploy Google Chrome onto each and every device. So earlier, how you were managing it, you used to log in onto the devices, each and every device, and then you used to install the software, right? But now this thing you can do via SCCM. What you have to do, you have to just place MSI package or .exe package, whatever the package you want to place in your SCCM server. So after placing it, what you can do, you can place that Google Chrome package into each and every device. You can target also. If you want only these 2 devices you want to target, you want to install Google Chrome, then you can target these 2 devices only. But if you want to deploy it on each and every device, then in that case, you can target all the devices as well. One more task. Let's say there is a Windows 10 installed in this laptop, right? And your user want to upgrade it to Windows 11. And even your management told you that you have to do it. Whatever the device is running with Windows 10, you have to upgrade it with Windows 11. Then how you will be able to do it? So do you need to get all the laptops with you? Then only you are going to install the operating system. If it is 10 or 20, then it is fine. But if it is 10,000 devices, so will you be able to manage each and every device? And you will be able to manage the installation of operating system onto each and every device? It would not easy to manage, right? So this thing also you can manage through SCCM. You can deploy that package again, that ISO package onto the SCCM server, right? And then you can target the devices on which you want to upgrade the operating system. Right? Now one more. Let's say you want to deploy the patches, the latest patches to the devices so that it can be secured. The devices can be secured. There would be no any vulnerability in the device. So in that case also, you can download the patches from Microsoft, right? And then through SCCM server, you can target the devices and then you can deploy the patches onto each and every device. And even after that, if you want to get the report that what and all devices are installed with that particular patch, that is also possible. Because it might possible that some of the devices are not in your network. Then in that case, obviously, the deployment will not be happen. The patches are not going to be deployed onto the devices. Okay, so in that case, you have to get the report also that what and all laptops are left with the particular update. You can get the report, and then in that case, you can deploy the patches through internet as well. So you can manage the devices by two ways in SCCM. If the device in your local network, then also you can manage. But if let's say the device is not in your local network, it is connected to internet, then in that case also you can manage it. You have to configure some firewall rules, right? And after that, you will be able to manage the device which is not in your local network. Okay, so these all things we will be able to get once we are going to configure the infrastructure. And one more thing, so if you are already working in any of the organization, right, you want to check whether that organization is using configuration manager or not, then in that case, just go to your laptop which is provided by your organization and search for software center. So if you are able to see that software center, that means your organization is using configuration manager, SCCM they're using. Right? So if you want that these devices will be able to communicate with your primary site server, in that case, you have to make sure that the client configuration manager client should get installed. Just take example. So let's say you are using antivirus in your organization, right? And you want that all the devices should report to your central console. Let's say it's McAfee, right? You want that all should report to the central server. Then in that case, what you need to do, you have to install the agents onto each and every device. Then only they are going to report to primary server, your central server basically. So in case of SCCM also, you have to make sure that the agent should be there in the laptops. Then only you will be able to manage the deployments. You will be able to manage the devices. Okay, and this task we can automate. This process we can automate. Means once the laptop is going to be the part of your domain, automatically the agent will be pushed from the central server to the device, and you will be able to see that yes, it is communicating, and you will be able to manage that particular device. Right? So if you want all the devices should work with your central server, with their primary site server, then in that case, the agent should be there. Then only they are going to report to the SCCM console. Okay. So these are the three prerequisites that we need to make sure. Domain controller we have to make, a primary site server we have to make, and a database, a SQL server we have to make. And one more thing, if you're going to work on SCCM console in any of the organization, you will not going to get the chance to configure this infra from very scratch, because over there the infrastructure is already built. You have to just manage it. That's it. But in my training, in our classes, right, you will be able to get that how to build these servers from very scratch, what and all roles and features should be installed onto the server to make that a server as a primary site server, a database server, or a domain controller. So I'll be showing you to configure the lab from very scratch on a very fresh server. We are going to start the installation, so that you can mention in your CVs that you have worked on the configuration of SCCM from very scratch. You're aware of that what and all roles and features should be installed in order to make a server as a primary site server. Okay, then let's move forward to the topics that we are going to cover under this module. Okay, first of all, so there would be 15 modules that we will be covering, and it is going to take 40 plus hours to complete all these modules. Right. So first of all, we will understand that what is configuration manager, what and all the benefits of it, why we should implement it. Okay. So there are multiple versions available of SCCM. So right now the version is 2303. It is 2211 written here, but the latest version is 2303. So we are going to work with 2303 itself. Okay, so overview of system center family of products, and then benefits of implementing system center. So as I told you, what are the benefits? You will be able to manage your devices. Let's say there is a requirement, your managers want to know. Let's say you have installed AutoCAD on a particular laptop, right? And your user want to know that for how long your users are using that particular software. Because sometimes it's license issue also, right? You have to pay for that license to Autodesk or whatever the organization, whatever the vendor you are taking the license, right? So whether it is efficient, whether the users are using it or not. So in that case, it can be the scenario that your management wants to know the report for 1 month. So that is also can be done through the SCCM. You can provide that report by running the query from your database server, right? And then you will be able to provide that particular report that yes, this particular user is using AutoCAD for 3 hours, this one is using for 4 hours. Based on that, you can provide the report to your management, right? Then, as I told you, there are 3 sites that we can configure, either a central or a primary or secondary. But primary is mandatory. Central and secondary, it is optional. It depends on the infra you have. Now, where you can use secondary site. Now, let's say I have one office in US, one is in India, and one is in Australia. Okay, so in case of primary site, first of all, if you are going to configure primary site, then in that case, I will be able to manage around 1,50,000 devices. In case of primary site, so primary site can manage around 1,50,000 devices. Right. Now, let's say in US, you have configured primary site, but in India, Obviously, how India users or how the laptops which are in India, how they will be able to get the policy from SCCM server. So in that case, either you have to make the communication from US to India, then only you will be able to manage the devices of India. But it is not a recommended solution. So what you can do in this case, in India, you can configure secondary site. Right? Let me draw a diagram. Let's say this is my primary site, and I'm going to name it as PS1. Okay, and this is available in US. Okay, and now what I'm doing is I am configuring other secondary site also. So let's say this is my secondary site 1, which is for India. This is my secondary site 2, which is for Australia. This is 3, because one organization can have multiple offices, right, over the globe. So how we will be able to manage the devices? So in that case, what you can do, you can set up the secondary site for that particular organization, so that the devices which are going to be in India, this server will be able to manage them. This secondary site server will be able to manage the devices. I'm going to name it as SS1. Then in that case, whatever the devices are going to be there in my India location, so this secondary site will be able to manage. Now, but there is limitation in case of secondary site. Secondary site can only manage 15K devices, 15,000 devices you can manage by configuring the secondary site. Okay, and so this is the hierarchy basically, where actually you are going to configure one primary site, and under that primary site you are going to create multiple secondary sites. Now the policies you are going to create here, after that the policy will be deployed to your secondary sites, and then whatever the devices are going to be connected with the secondary site, they will be able to get that policy. Likewise, you can configure the central administration site also, CAS also. Might be I will be having the diagram. Let me show you. So even after this, I'm going to provide the interview questions as well, right? So what could be the interview question related to this course? So I'm going to provide the PDF of that with questions as well as with answers also. Okay. Then let's go to the PPT again. Yeah, so configure manager site system roles, how to configure it, how data flows and replication in hierarchy, how this hierarchy will work, how primary site will be able to send the data to secondary site, right? So this all thing we are going to understand in the module 1, and then we will plan to configure our primary site, how to configure the primary site. Then in that case, we are going to plan in the module 1, right? Then in second module, okay, that deployment of primary site, right, under which we are going to configure secondary site, we are going to extend the Active Directory schema, because by default SCCM is not aware of Active Directory. So we have to make sure that it should be aware of that, yes, Active Directory is something. From there only I will be able to get the data of the organization. From there only I will be able to get the information of devices. So in order to do that, what we have to do, we have to extend the Active Directory schema, right? And then we will configure the database server, because in order to configure a primary site, so three things are mandatory, that is Active Directory, your primary site server, and the third one is your SQL server. Right? Then what on all options are there in the configuration manager console? We will talk about that, how the console looks like, what and all things we can perform in the console, what and all options we need to go. Let's say you want to deploy an application, then in that case, which option you should select. So all these things we will be able to we will be able to work on all these things on in the module 2, right? And then module 3, that is discovering and organizing resources. Now you have configured your primary site, right? But how you will be able to get the devices information? So we have to set up the discovery method, right? So either you can configure the discovery method over a forest or a particular domain also. Now these what and all forest, what and all domains, right? So this we will be covering once we will start the topic. Or even if you are already aware of domain controllers, then it would be easy for you to understand this concept. Even let me tell you the prerequisite in order to go with SCCM, right? So you should be aware of Active Directory. You should be aware of domain controllers. Then it would be easy for you to understand the concept. Okay, you should be aware of virtualization also, because we are going to perform this lab under Hyper-V. So we should be aware of the virtualization tool. But if you are not, don't worry, I'll be explaining each and everything time to time. Okay. Now discovering and organizing resources. So how you will be able to get the devices information? So in that case, we have to set up the boundaries. Boundaries can be configured based on IP configuration, right? Or based on subnet also. You can give the subnet range also, and then whatever the devices are going to be there within that subnet, right? It would be able to get the information of all the devices. And based on Active Directory also, we can get the information of the devices. So this thing we will be able to get to know when we will configure the things, right? That what method we want to configure. So basically, in major of the organization, what I have seen, that they used to set the boundaries method via IP configuration. They used to set up the IP ranges, so that whatever the devices are going to be there in that particular IP range, it should reflect under your SCCM console, right? Then we have configuring the role-based administration. Now, if you want that apart from you, some of the users will also be having the access of your SCCM console. So might be if you have joined my MCSA batch, right? So we did the delegate control, that only these users will be able to manage my Active Directory. Apart from that, no one will be able to. The same thing we can do with our SCCM as well. We want that this console can only be managed by these particular users, and also they will not be having the full control onto it. I just want to give them the delegate control. Only few of the operations they will be able to perform on my SCCM console. So this thing we are going to learn in this configuring role-based administration, right? And then collections also we are going to make. Now let's say you have Windows 10 devices, you have Windows 11 devices, you have server 2019. So you want to target only Windows 10 device, then how you will be able to target them? So in that case, we will make the collection based on the operating system, so that what and all devices are going to be there with Windows 10, they will be under that Windows 10 collection, right? And same for Windows 11 and same for other operating systems also, right? So this is our module 3. And then module 4, manager client. How you will be able to manage the client? We have to push the client to the device. As I was explaining you earlier, that you have to make sure that there should be client installed onto your devices, onto your laptops. Then only the devices are going to be report to your SCCM console. So how we can make that? How we can make that process easy or automated basically? Then in that case, we are going to work in this module 4, and I'm going to show you that how we can set up this installation, client installation automatically when the systems are going to be the part of your domain. Okay. Then module 5, inventory and software metering. I was giving you the example that your manager wants to know for the running time of a particular software, that for how long users are using that particular software. So in that case, we have to work with the software metering, and same managing inventory also. Let's say your management wants to know that how many devices you have in your organization. They all get to know, they all wants to get the information of all the devices. So we can do it via inventory management. They want to know how many Windows 10 devices are there. They want to know how many Windows 11 devices are there. They want to know how many HP laptops are there. They want to know how many Dell laptops are there in the organization. So all these things can be managed via your hardware inventory and then software inventory also. You want to know that how many softwares are installed onto a particular devices. You want to get the inventory of that. That is also can be done via inventory management. Because sometimes user used to install some pirated software also, right? So it is your responsibility to make that sure that there would be not any pirated software is there in your laptops. You have to make sure. So in that case, what you can do, you can set up a query that every 15 days it is going to scan all the devices, and you will be able to get the report that on how many devices what and all softwares are installed. Because nowadays security is the priority of any of the organization. Okay, so managing inventory and software metering, in which configuring asset intelligence, hardware inventory, software inventory, right? Manage hardware and software inventory, monitoring inventory data flow, and then the lab, how to do it, right? So this is in the module 5. And then module 6, querying and reporting data. Now, this is what I told you. If you want to set up a report, a, a 15 days report, or a weekly report, or a monthly report, then in that case, you have to create a report subscription in your SQL server, database server, and you have to run that queries in order to get the result based on that query. So this thing we are going to see in module 6, that how to create our queries and how to run that queries using SQL commands, right? Then we have module 7, that is managing software deployment by using application package model, the major part of SCCM. So in multiple organization, you will be able to see a job role that they are looking for a person who has the knowledge of application packaging, or who has the knowledge of software deployment. So how to deploy the software, how to uninstall them as well. Now let's say it is not needed, so you can install it from SCCM console itself. No need to go to the system manually and then uninstall the software. You can do directly via your SCCM portal, right? This is module 7. And then module 8, that is managing software updates, which is your patching, again the major part of the SCCM. To make your infrastructure secured, you have to deploy the patches. You have to deploy the Microsoft approved updates in your infra so that that would be secured. Right? So this we are going to learn in the module 8. And then we have module 9, managing operating system deployment, OSD. Again, the major part of SCCM. How you can install the operating system, how you can do the in-place upgrade, how you can do the bare metal installation of operating system. So these all things are covered in module 9. If let's say you have a new laptop in the organization, right? You want to deploy your own operating system, not that provided by the vendor. So in that case, you can do the bare metal installation on that laptop, and that can be done via SCCM. Right? And then we have module 9 is okay. And then module 10, which is endpoint protection. You can configure the defender also from SCCM console. Right? You want to run the scan in each and every device of your organization, that what and all devices are vulnerable. Right? So in that case, you can run the scan through your console, right? And you will be able to get the report that what and all devices are still pending with the latest patches. As well as you will be able to see that what and all viruses are there, what and all malwares are there. So you will be able to get all the reports. And if you are getting that vulnerability, right? So in that case, you can do the remediation also, auto remediation also, that we are going to cover in module 11, compliance settings, and then how we can make the system compliant. If let's say there is a system which is left with a security update, right? So in that case, what it will do, the scan will give me the result that yes, this system is pending with the update. So either I can do the deployment of that particular patch manually, or in the compliant script itself, I can define the auto remediation also. Means as soon as it is going to detect that yes, this system is pending with that particular patch, automatically that patch is going to be installed on that device. That is called auto remediation. That is also a major thing that you have to perform in your organization. Right? So there are multiple third-party tools also that companies are using, like Qualys is there, Nessus is there, which is going to scan your devices, and it will be able to generate a report based on the systems which are still left with any of the patches. Right? But the same thing you can do via SCCM also. No need to get that third-party tool. It totally depends on the in the organization whether they want to go with any third party or they will be able to manage it via SCCM. Okay, so it is module 11, and then module 12, Intunes, again the major thing. So these two technology nowadays, for a system administrator, for an operations engineer, it is mandatory that you should be aware of configuration manager as well as Intunes, how Intunes works. So Intunes is totally a cloud-based solution. No need to set up these servers. So for SCCM, we have to build all these servers to manage it, right? But for Intunes, it is totally a cloud-based solution. It is totally a console, basically, which is available on the cloud, like Microsoft 365, like Azure. Likewise, it is a console where actually you will be able to manage your devices, your mobile devices also, or your computers also, your laptops also. So we are going to cover Intunes also in module 12, right? Then we have module 13, which is configuring power management and remote control. So if agent is there in the laptop of your organization, you can take that laptop on remote. No need to do RDP and all, because SCCM is giving you the option of remote control, and over there you can go to it. If there is something wrong with that particular laptop, you can log in onto it and you can do your troubleshooting. And power management also you can manage. Right? Then module 14, in which we are going to configure the site maintenance, basically disaster recovery, DR. If let's say there is something wrong with our server, or let's say our data center is down. So in that case, how we will be able to make our services highly available? So in that case, we have to set up the backup, and then we can recover that backup onto any of the server. Yes, there would be a minimal downtime is going to be there for a particular, for some time, the users will not be able to access the services through your SCCM, but you have to bear that, right? So how to create the backup and how to restore it on a separate server, we are going to learn in the module 14. And then module 15 is configuring a secondary site. How to configure secondary site, how to point the devices to the secondary site so that they will be able to take the policy from secondary site. So we are going to learn in the module 15. Okay, so these all 15 modules we are going to cover in this whole SCCM course. Now, if you have any confusion, you can unmute yourself and please let me know. Any confusion, guys, regarding this whole module?
Hi, this is Kranti.
Yeah, hi Kranti.
Yeah, regarding this, like, do you, for this course, do you require this MCSA background, which like knowledge?
If it is there, then it would be great. Okay. But if it is not, don't worry, I will be explaining each and everything.
Okay. Okay, thank
the
you.
MCSA knowledge is only I'm telling about the domain controller. That's it. I'm not saying that you should be aware of file servers and all. I'm not saying that you should be aware of DHCP and all these things. So I'm just saying only domain controllers you should be aware of. What is domain controller, why it is needed, what is primary domain controller, what is additional domain controller. So these all things you should be aware of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. I am Sheikh Mohammed.
Hi, Sheikh.
Yes, sir. We can perform this lab in VMware also. Is it correct?
Sorry.
Or we can perform this lab swap in VMware also. VMware.
You can configure it on any of the hypervisors. There would be no any restriction. Yes, you can do it on Hyper-V, you can do it on VMware, you can do it on VirtualBox. So choice is yours.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move forward. That how we are going to configure our labs. So these labs, either we can configure it in our own laptop, right? Or you can use Azure. Because see, in order to run these 3 servers, we will be needing around 5 machines at a time. So if you have 32 GB or 16 GB RAM in your laptop, then it would be fine. But if it is less than that, then you will not be able to perform on your own laptop. So you have to configure it on Azure. Right. So I'll be showing you both the ways how to configure the lab on Azure, as well as how to configure the lab on your own machine. So it totally depends on you how you want to configure it. And one more thing, one more option you have. If you don't want to configure on Azure, then in that case, you can use networking labs as well. So once you're going to enroll in this course, right, you will be having the access of networking labs. So over there, 3 or 4 servers are already configured. I mean to say operating system is already there. You have to just configure it. You have to make your primary site. You have to make your SQL server. You have to make your domain controller. Right? So the labs will be like this. Might be you already aware of, but let me show you. Okay, so this is how you will be able to get the access of these labs, right? So the servers are already configured. You have to just start the servers, right? And then you will be able to take the console of this machine. Okay, so let me mention in this that these labs can be configured on your own laptop if you have a good configuration, or your desktop, right? And you can configure it on Azure, or you can configure it in the NK labs also. Right? So this is the server. See, so on this, just you have to make the you have to just take the console of this machine. Initially, you have to go with Control, Alt, and Delete, and then you have to give the password. Yep. So likewise, you can just you can start all the servers and you can take the console. So these servers are in the local network. They will be able to communicate with each other. Okay, and then we will be able to manage our infra. We will be able to manage our devices. So these are the end devices. Windows 1 and Windows 2. Might be they will be having Windows 10, and then you will be able to manage these devices. You will be able to deploy the softwares. You will be able to deploy the patches. You will be able to deploy the operating system. Means whatever the topics we covered, right? So all things, all these topics can be configured in these labs also. But one topic we will not be able to, that is bare metal installation of the operating system. You can do in place upgrade, that is fine. If this laptop is with Windows 10, you want to upgrade it to Windows 11, Windows 10 to 11, it is possible. But a fresh installation, you will not be able to make. And even on Azure also, we will not be able to do this practical. So this practical can only be performed on your own laptops, right? And I am going to configure it on Hyper-V. If you want to go with VMware, so that would be fine. I don't have any issue with that. So you can configure your lab on VMware, VirtualBox, or on Hyper-V. It totally depends on you how you want to go with it. Right, but just one thing, let me make you sure again that still 90% of the organization are using